There are a lot of cool things in this world, like space, flying squirrels, the fact that Henry Cavill is a person that actually exists. But there's one thing that I find especially cool, which is speed. I've been enamored by the idea of speedrunning ever since I was a kid, sitting in my brother's room playing through Sly Cooper and the Thingus Rackamagookus for the 1000th time, just to see how fast I could beat it. There's just something so appealing about going fast and completely decimating the carefully crafted game that developers spent countless hours making. There are a ton of fantastic speedruns out there, but today I wanted to focus on this little indie game called... I really enjoy these types of transitions. Is it noticeable? Yeah, they're fun. Tears of the Kingdom released, dear God, over a year ago? Wow. I was met with overwhelming positivity. After all, it took everything that made Breath of the Wild great and expanded on it. Did you like the map? Well, how about we make it vertical? Those cool abilities? Boring. We now have uppies. The freedom to explore this vast open world by utilizing different forms of movement. Flying by! And from a speedrunner's point of view, the best thing with adding more mechanics is that there is more for us to break, and boy did we break it! So please allow me to show you the wonder that is Tears of the Kingdom any % speedrun, and how a game with an average time to beat of over 60 hours was beat in around 40 minutes. The run starts as soon as we create a new save file, but it's gonna be another 40 seconds until we actually get to play. So I wanted to take a moment to give a massive thank you to Moldy Meatballs for allowing me to use this footage for this video, and also to info dump a bit before we actually get started. While I did mention that this was gonna be an any % run, more specifically it's gonna be the any % run no amiibo on the 1.0 version. The reason I chose the 1.0 version is because it is the most broken one, and that's more fun to showcase. The reason why I chose the no amiibo run over the amiibo run, even though the amiibo run is roughly a minute faster, is because I do not like amiibos. That's it. Right as we get control of Link, we're gonna do the only sensible thing to do and clip outside the map. We want to grab onto the wall, line Link up with something, and with a hop, skip, and a jump, we're on top of the cave. Now, the reason we clip outside the map, besides the cool factor of course, is because this intro sequence is smack filled with cutscenes and dialogues. And we don't like those, because we're speedrunners, we wanna go fast. Speaking of cutscenes, we're gonna skip the first one by jumping over the cutscene trigger using a trick called long jumping, which is performed by jumping in one direction, pressing R to face Link more than 90 degrees away from the jumping direction, and then pressing Y to input a jump slash, allowing us to keep the momentum during the jump. Then we're gonna perform a similar trick called master jumping, which consists of jumping in any direction that Link isn't looking, and chaining together multiple jump slashes, which will give us more distance. Once we land, we'll climb down this wall and jump along it to avoid yet another cutscene trigger. And finally, we do some more master jumps to fly over the abyss, right into the cutscene that marks the end of the intro segment. If I could credit something for keeping people away from speedrunning this game, this cutscene would be it. Because, as you might have guessed already, this cutscene is unskippable! And 4 minutes long. Fun fact, you can actually beat Ocarina of Time before this cutscene ends. Yeah. But it's worth pointing out that you are allowed to start a run from a save after the intro cutscene, with the caveat that your timer starts at 6 minutes, 40 seconds and 867 milliseconds. This is great for a lot of runners as it skips the most tedious part of running the game, but for the top runners this ends up being slower. Okay, quick update. While making the video, a new rule was introduced that allows runners to either use a mod which skips the intro upon choosing OK at the start of cutscene, or by not using a mod and choosing not yet and then loading a save after the intro. Here are the full rules if you really want to know, but long story short, no one has to suffer through the intro cutscene anymore. Everyone wins! Okay, back to the video. Finally, after the excruciating cutscene is done, we wake up in the Room of Awakening, stripped of our clothes, health and dignity. Grab the sword, slash the vines, and, like in the beginning of the run, line Link up with something and do a long jump to get up on this ledge. This is called cog skip, and thanks to it we can take a different route out of this place that is not only faster, but will also lead us to the earliest available gliders in the game, and I cannot stress enough how important gliders are gonna be in this run. We'll dupe the wings real quick by holding them, sorting our inventory, and closing the inventory. Yes, it is that simple. It is then time for us to dive towards our inevitable doom. Is what I would have said if you weren't speedrunners. Of course we have a trick, and that trick is called Wing Flip FTC, which stands for frick dude. Cool. This is performed by pulling out a wing, master jumping, grabbing the wing to cancel fall damage, master jumping again, pull out another wing, and then closing it out with a final master jump to land on the wing while taking minimal damage. Besides looking sick as hell, we do this both to get to the construct faster and to make sure that we don't reset our respawn point by touching the ground. You'll see why in a bit. We have a mandatory gap with the construct. He gives us our Nintendo Switch, tells us what to do, and then we'll completely ignore it and jump off a cliff. Again. On our ride over to the Temple of Time, we take the chance to destroy our sword, because this will skip a dialogue box in about 30 seconds that teaches us how to switch weapons. Speaking of nothing related to what I just said, we're gonna encounter our first enemy in the game outside of the temple, and we're gonna take him out by performing vehicular robicide. Do you remember what I said about not touching the ground? That hasn't changed. So we're gonna do some goofy out platforming with wings to reach the door of the temple. To actually access the temple though, we need to gather the 4 runes. These news sadden us so much that we're once again gonna jump off a cliff and pray that 3rd time's the charm. And end up back at spawn again. This is why we didn't touch the ground, so our respawn point would still be up here. Same story. Glider out, glide to place, cancel fall damage. Ta-da! Into the first shrine we go. Once we're in, this hot kangaroo dude that I'm not gonna explain is gonna give us our first ability, Uppies. I refuse to call it anything else. We'll then make our way through the shrine like normal, take out this construct for its bow, open this chest for another bow, and then it gets complicated, because this next glitch is not only the most impactful one in the run, it's also the most complex one to explain. So I'm gonna water it down as much as I can.
Here's Link. Link has an avid imagination. His power of imagination is so strong, in fact, that he can will things into being. Well, partly. Here's Link with a bow. And with that bow as a reference, an avid imagination, and some hocus pocus that looks like this. Link is able to gaslight himself into thinking he's holding that bow, even though he clearly is not.
This is called arrow smuggling, one of the many uses of smuggling. I will not explain smuggling in detail. This video would double in length. Just know that through smuggling we can create an imaginary copy of a sword, shield, or in this case a bow, which allows us to do this. So what is happening here? Well, when we perform a jump slash, we get a small amount of height before we come slashing down. But thanks to our imaginary bow, we can cancel the jump slash by aiming, which in turn lets us do another jump slash. So we just loop jump slash into aiming to, more or less, gain the ability to fly. And because we have no arrows, we don't enter bullet time when we aim. That is going to be very important later. Done with the first shrine. First things first, we'll take a quick detour down here to grab an extra shield and a bomb flower, and then we'll head towards the second shrine, throw a capsule off the edge, hop on a wing, dupe a bomb, and then get put into a dialogue. The reason why is because the capsule we threw off the edge fell down and hit a sonar device, which alerted a nearby construct, prompting the dialogue, which gives us our battery pack. We dupe a few more bombs and then proceed to ignore the laws of physics by arrow flying over to the second shrine. And like I mentioned in the beginning of the run, as long as we're not faced towards the direction we're moving, performing a jump slash keeps our momentum, allowing for this. Now, I'm gonna be frank. After the second shrine, the rest of Great Sky Island gets a bit samey. Don't get me wrong, it's still impressive and interesting, but there's not much I can comment on in the moment-to-moment gameplay that isn't more of the same. So instead, I'm gonna do more of a recap of the rest of the island. But if you want to see the run in its full glory, which I would highly recommend, it's linked in the description. After my video, of course. Please don't leave. Our goals for the rest of the island is to get our hands on 3 more abilities, namely Fuse, Ultra Hand, and Recall. And to get our hands on 3 more Lights of Blessing, so we can get a 4th heart, which is needed to finish the island. And first up on that list is Fuse, which is an ability that lets us fuse materials to weapons, arrows, and shields. What we're gonna use it for the most is bomb jumping, which is fusing a bomb to a shield and then hopping onto it. It's great for gaining height and great for gaining speed. Finishing the shrine gives us our 2nd blessing. Once we get out, we're gonna do a cute little dance to line up our arrow flight to the 3rd shrine, where we're gonna get our 3rd ability, Ultra Hand. Ultra Hand lets us move around things from a distance, kinda like the gravity gun from Half-Life, but not lame. It also lets us fuse together objects out in the world, to make anything from a wing with propellers to whatever the hell this is. We're gonna use it once. Once we're in, we're gonna do a very precise lineup so we can bomb jump and fly straight to the end and get our 3rd blessing. Now we're gonna head back to the Temple of Time and get our 4th and final ability, Recall. It lets us rewind objects in time. Very neat and completely useless to us. This is also when we find out that we need a 4th heart to finish the island. And luckily for us, Mr. Kangaroo comes through and pops another shrine into existence back at the Room of Awakening. So we teleport back to spawn and make our way into the final shrine. This shrine is very straightforward, which is perfect for us because that means we can just fly straight to the end once again. Oh, and here's the one time we're gonna use Ultra Hand. Wow. With the 4th blessing in the bag, we're gonna go on the 1 detour from the Amiibo speedrun, as we need to get our hands on a ruby. Normally we would scan the rock, I don't know, for a ruby or a topaz, giving us a 26% chance to get what we need. Instead, we're gonna make our way down from the 1st island and enter a cave, where we'll break an ore vein to get a ruby. Alright, home stretch. Now that we have everything we need, all that's left to do is to go back to the Temple of Time, turn in our blessings to get our 4th heart. Damn, that's hard to say. Open the door that required said hearts, and then fly over to the shining table at the end to finish off Great Sky Island. Now that we're done with the tutorial, there's nothing stopping us from going straight to Hyrule Castle and squaring up against Ganon. Normally, that would be a terrible idea, as we're missing a ton of pretty crucial stuff. And because we haven't cleared a single temple, we would also have to deal with a boss rush before even getting the chance to fight Ganon. But we're speedrunners, so none of that matters. All we need are 25 rubies and a dream. So after a bit more duping and a very long arrow flight, we set foot in Hyrule Castle. But not for long. Remember how I mentioned earlier that we enter bullet time if we're arrow smuggling with arrows? Well, there just so happens to be laying some arrows here, which will allow us to perform jump slash cancel clipping. We perform it by arrow smuggling into a ceiling until Link's head clips through it. Once he has reached his peak height, we shield surf, which gives us just enough height to clip through the ceiling entirely. And then we take a leap of faith straight into the void. Normally, to get to the final encounter in the game, one would have to make their way through a very long and very dangerous tunnel, but we skipped that entire section by diving straight down to the trigger for the final encounter. The encounter starts off with 4 waves of increasingly difficult enemies. Enemies that we will trivialize by spam throwing out rubies. During these waves, we're gonna pick up a few items. On wave 1, we're gonna pick up a bokoblin horn that we can fuse to our weapon for increased damage. And on wave 2 and 3, we're gonna pick up 2 royal halberds. After we clear the 4th wave, we'll be sent into the aforementioned boss rush because we haven't cleared any temples. Oh, come on, we don't have time for that. We got a date with the green guy. The very tanky green guy. And for our date to go smooth, we're gonna need a lot more damage. Luckily for us, Link's avid imagination is not just limited to bows. Bring out the board!
At some point in the last 20 minutes, Link's imagination reached new heights. Why limit myself to imaginary weapons? He thought to himself. After all, the only thing better than one weapon is two, or three, or 20. With this newfound knowledge, a reference, and some more hocus pocus that looks like this, Link is able to create a copy of the weapon, and each time he performs the hocus pocus, yet another copy gets added, and so does the damage.
This is called map smuggling, which is another form of smuggling that lets us stack multiple hitboxes on top of each other. We're gonna smuggle a few copies of the Royal Halberd that we picked up, and also fuse the Goblin Horn to them in a moment. And you'll see soon how insane the damage is gonna be thanks to this. After we're done hocusing, we're gonna JCC out of bounds, run over to the corridor leading to Ganon, and then JCC back in bounds, but outside the boss rush arena. And for one final time, we're gonna bomb jump and fly all the way to... We're gonna run all the way to our date with the man himself. Listen, everyone makes mistakes, alright? Even the pros. It happens. It's fine. But finally, it's time to face Ganon. And there it is! Ganon skewered by a guy in his underwear who woke up from a coma 30 minutes ago. One skipped cutscene later, we're now in the sky, riding a dragon and holding a newly acquired Master Sword. Oh, and Ganon is also a dragon now. If you don't know the story, don't worry about it. All you need to know is that we gotta destroy a few flesh balls on Ganon's back. God, that's a foul sentence. The movement in this segment is very meticulous to ensure that we get to all the flesh balls as fast as possible. Not just because speed, but also because we're trying to do this entire segment in one specific cycle. We also have less leeway for mistakes on account of missing the hang glider. So let's break this down. After getting a bit of extra height, we jump off our dragon, let's call her Zelda for the time being, and perform a few master jumps to delay our fall and line up with the first ball. While falling, we drop our Royal Halberd to get rid of the Suggle, because everything besides the Master Sword will deal negligible damage to the balls and can steal hits from the Master Sword, which could mess up the cycle. After we destroy the first ball, we'll get thrown off. This will happen every time we destroy a ball. Once we're in the air, we pull out a wing and we glide over to the second ball. After destroying this ball, we won't be able to reach another ball when he knocks us off. So instead, we dive down and have Zelda give us a lift back up. Same thing again, drop down to one ball, destroy it, get thrown off, glide over to the second ball, and destroy it as well. This time though, we're gonna line Link up so he's facing north. Once we get thrown off, we're gonna repeatedly master jump until Zelda's hind legs reaches the bottom of the screen. Wait until she goes off the screen completely, then keep master jumping until we get picked up by Zelda once again. By doing it like this, we land on her right as she's flying up, allowing us to jump off really early and land on Ganon's head. And with a few swings and a stab into his forehead, we defeat Ganon. For real this time. Oh look, there's Zelda. Now the only thing left to do to finish out this run is to bless Hyrule with the fattest dap known to mankind. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom any percent speedrun. No amiibo. I really enjoyed this run, and I hope after watching the video that you do as well. This has been a long time in the making. Partly because of all the research, partly because of the editing, and partly because I I kept getting distracted by other things. I'm only human. If you want to know more about Tears of the Kingdom speedrunning, I'll leave a link to their Discord in the description, along with some other interesting links. Thank you so much for watching. You should also do all of these things if you enjoyed the video. Next time I'm breaking down the Super Mario Odyssey nipple percent.